welcome to Unsourced Wall. My name is Elvis, and as always, I am your host. Alright, so this is going to be kind of a short episode. As you might have noticed, there is something a little bit special at the beginning of this one. I got that off what was purportedly a self-generating, like MIDI tune website. I think for season 3, it'd be kind of fun to get a new one for every episode and see what happens from there. Anyway, yes, there's not going to be a lot this week, just a couple of big hit news items, some reviews, and of course, what I watched this week. Plus, some great listener questions. So, let's move on with it. The first news item I want to talk about is, of course, what's on everybody's mind. Daredevil got canceled. And I have to say, I am not going to lose any sleep over that. I think that it confirms what everyone was thinking when Netflix announced that they would run these shows as long as they wanted, because they had full control. And resoundingly, everyone thought and believed bullshit. And yeah, Daredevil is canceled, and it was probably their flagship show. It was the show that, for some reason, people still call a masterpiece and unforgettable and unputdownable. So yeah, no, it got canceled, and that is just amazing. And I mean that in all sense of the words. I am amazed that got canceled. And this latest season, I was coerced into watching, and it was just the most dull, most shoddily executed thing this side of something that's not the CW. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing, and it was foolish, and it was just so ridiculous, but it wanted to be more, which made all of that backfire. So yeah, no, I am honestly sorry for all the people who worked on the show, who worked all 3 seasons, and who are now put in a position where they are out of work. A really crap deal, and I hope that they find work. Daredevil, though, 3 seasons of complete hogwash. I can only hope that whatever Disney canceled it for to put on their streaming service is going to be a huge improvement over it. In more optimistic news, however, we have had the big announcement that Rebellion, who owns a large chunk of classic British comic rights and 2000 AD, have opened up their own $100 million movie and TV studio. And it's expected that this is where their proposed series based on Judge Dredd, called Mega City 1, and the in-development Rogue Trooper movie will find their home, which makes both of those projects a lot more likely than they were when they were first announced. I know that there has been a lot of caution and a lot of trepidation because that was something that was never really settled, so people were just hedging their bets. But now that they've opened up this new endeavor, I can't help but say that I wish them all the best. I hope it all works out. So fingers crossed on that. In some lighter news, however, there has been teases that Smallville will cross over with the Arrowverse as part of their new initiative to act that they're in some sort of fuller multiverse. And that has me very worried because Smallville, for all of its faults, actually had a lot of entertainment value and Arrowverse doesn't. So either they're gonna dumb them the hell down, or it's just going to make the Arrowverse look that much worse and thus ruin those episodes anyway. Just not with any of these other CW crap stuff. It's insane how much the decline has been since then. And our last bit of news comes from the comics world, as Batman the Outsiders has been indefinitely put on hiatus due to some conflicts with the upcoming arcs in Tom King's Batman that haven't lined up yet. Writer Brian Edward Hill has been adamant that the series is not fully cancelled and that these are just things that need to be put in order before his series can finally launch. Of course, Brian Edward Hill, I have never really enjoyed any of his DC work. I thought Michael Cray was pretty trash, and I believe he did the Hong Kong Phooey crossover with Black Lightning, and that was pretty bad too, I have to say. It was a great concept, but it was just so dull. And our last bit of comic news is that we do have a full announcement for Mark Millar's new comic book with Netflix called Sharky the Bounty Hunter, which is pretty much, I think, like Shane in space. It's about a bounty hunter who is tagged along by the son of a person he took in the bounty for, and he is forced to take him all the way back home. Hopefully it's a lot more rounded out than some of the stuff he's been doing now, because they have really fallen flat when they shouldn't be. Anyway, let's move on into what I read this week. Now, it's been kind of a short week, although there are some surprises here and there. Especially, and let's get into it right now, as you probably already heard, Doomsday Clock number 8 has been leaked. Now, there are a lot of rumors about how and why it leaked, some contradictory to others. To parse it down to something kind of coherent and understandable, the main talking points would be that it was A, it was either stolen or leaked by some hackers through the usual channels, or it was leaked by, I guess, some Russian official, is that apparently there's some law where if you showcase Putin as Putin in a work of fiction, it has to be approved by the Russian government, and so DC sent them a digital file, which then is the file that has been making the rounds online. So either one of those two, and there's a lot more where that came from, but those two seem the most salient to me, and that's putting a stretch on it. I will probably get more into it when it comes out in full next week. It just seems kind of mean-spirited to get into spoilers over something that, doesn't really have a fighting chance right now. But I will say that I didn't enjoy it. I felt that it was kind of really lame, and it's continuing the trend of the series to just not do anything at all. But the boys are finally coming home, guys, and I'll get more into that next time. And that is the cherry on top of something that is turning out to be really, really mediocre. Next up would be Heroes in Crisis number 3, which is yet another middling issue by Tom King that serves to do nothing. It's meant to be sort of a character piece based on Booster, but it's filled up with too many wannabe character piecing for characters that were just shock deaths. So you don't really get the focal point of Booster at all, and then you get some really outrageously silly dialogue that just feels so out of place that it just takes away all the impact. That's the thing with Tom King books. They never feel like they can have the actual sort of weight they desperately want, because he feels like he has to make concessions to the genre and to the medium, and it feels like, no, just tell the actual story. You're doing too many of these other things that, well, weaken your message, weaken your themes. It makes everything come off really stupid. Like you're reading something that's honestly not even a story, and that's how that feels like. To the point where Tom King is trying to hammer home that this one side character is so obscenely thematic, and so that he even gets to be the center of the issue's title. But it just falls flat because it's so haphazardly executed. 2 thumbs down. Next up is Stray Bullets, Sunshine and Roses number 40, and this is something I never thought I would say, but I am really worried that this series is going to lose me. And I never thought I'd say that because if anyone knows me, if anyone's been listening, Stray Bullets has always been in my eyes a fucking masterpiece. It's brilliant, it's outrageous, it's toned, it's dramatic, it's grounded, exaggerated, it's fun, it's depressing, it's so magnetic, and it does everything I would love to see in anything crime fiction related. Unfortunately, these latest couple of issues have been bringing in an element that I don't really think it needed to do at all. And I'm pretty sure it's only doing it because it's easy, not because it makes for a better story or that it opens up the world. Although it unfortunately does in some really dire ways. And just to get into it, it turns out that one of the main characters is psychic, and that time is a circle, and that between any 2 points, the rest is fluid and can be malleable and changed, and you can have other people's thoughts from the future melded into yours, and all this ridiculous stuff that I feel, why do you even need a supernatural element? Oh wait, it's because there's like 15 different subplots in this one arc already, and you need to have a narrative gimmick that can metaphorically be there for every single one of them and try and pull them all together, because there is really no functional way that some of the characters can get to the places that they need to be unless you have someone who can see the future or who can read minds and can tell where people are to tell the other characters to go there. It just takes kind of spark out of it. A couple of issues ago, there's this magnificent page, this magnificent little punchline where you have one of the characters in a coma and she's on the verge of dying, and then the final page, she just gets saved out of nowhere, and it's ridiculous and it's silly and it's so sudden. But the series has been doing such a great job of handling these kinds of sort of sudden shifts, because then you're primed to think, based on what the series has done before, what was the thing that set in motion this domino effect that got her saved. So it is really deflating, just very disappointing that the answer was a character was psychic and that time is a circle. It's just so uninspired. And like I said, I am on the verge of being lost by this comic. Just by this. I mean, I'm not going to give up on it. I still think that there's so many fantastic things it can do. But the thing is, right, whether or not this character is ever going to be expanded upon, or this new, like, confirmed influence of the supernatural is going to carry over into future arcs, the fact of the matter is that the can of worms has been opened. This exists. You just have it there now. It just kind of detracts a little bit from it. I'm still going to be reading for the characters I honestly still love. I think that I'm still totally invested in their plight, but yeah, this is something that I felt could have been done a lot better. Anyway, one thumb middle, one thumb up. And lastly, we have Fantastic Four number 4, which I probably will drop after this arc, because this is the intersection where we go from getting the band back together, which was the whole purpose of the first 3 issues, and then getting back to basics, which is the entire aim of this issue. And it does it in a very slapdash and wishy-washy way that it feels like they put the littlest amount of thought they could into this. And that's pretty lame, because you get stuff like the Future Foundation getting almost no play through the first 3 issues, and then them not getting any lines other than "goodbye, we'll miss you, we were family." It feels like a wasted opportunity and entirely missing the potential you could have had. And I know I've been jokingly referencing this every time an issue comes out, but even Bentley gets just one line, which is "Goodbye, Franklin, we were as close as brothers." And I'm saying that robotically because that's how it comes off, because it's not even Bentley who says it. Franklin responds, "I'll miss you too, Bentley." But it's not. The artist just wrote Alex Power again. Like, you see Alex Power in the previous panel, and then you see like the exact same design in the panel afterward. And well, I guess maybe Slott forgot about Bentley and the entire importance he had in terms of the dynamic with the kids, and so just edited that line in at the very last second. And that's probably what happened. And it's incredibly lazy. It's a lazy comic. It's a lazy book. There are 1 or 2 lines that I still enjoy. I think this book has been doing a really good job at having these soft little humorous beats. But like I've always tried to pin down, it also has to have that humane moment. And this is not humane at all. There's no humanity here. It's just very clinical, very technical. See, look, they're heading into an old brownstone that's numbered 4. Isn't that neat and cozy, and don't you feel great? No, it's really lackluster. Anyway, yeah, 2 thumbs down. Which I guess really only leaves what I watched this week. And like always, it's Titans. This episode is called Donna Troy, and clearly it concerns bringing in this character to the Titans show's whole mythology. It's probably the least effective of these character introduction episodes they've been doing, which have made up half the show. Much of that has been incredibly entertaining. The Jason Todd introduction episode, fantastic. Hawk and Dove introduction episode, full of very memorable scenes and some great acting. Doom Patrol introduction episode, enough said. It was honestly really fun. This one though, it's just kind of taking up space, and it's exactly like last week's episode. It's just there so that characters go to a place or meet some kind of intercession. And just like that episode, it's something that they could have done much more with. It's something that they could have pulled off and depicted a lot more interestingly and a lot more visually and a lot more kind of emotionally to the audience, but it just kind of misses the mark on all those. It's still an entertaining episode, but it's nowhere near, like I said, the heights of the other episodes that do take full advantage of all those things that it can do and that it has done. You get only the bare minimum of character interaction and character development across the board. And what you do get, unlike last episode where that character stuff was still pretty interesting, this time it's honestly a step down and kind of dumbfounding, because first things first, the guy playing Beast Boy is like in his mid-20s, and Raven is very obviously played by a young teenage girl. So they're trying to seed out some sort of like romantic tinge there, and it is off-putting. Secondarily, while that's weird on its own, the fact of the matter is that their dynamic didn't have to be punctuated with a romantic quotient. They had this really great sort of familial thing going on. I think people have already kind of noted that, like, you have Starfire and Dick as kind of the parents, and then you have Raven and Beast Boy as the kids, and it worked. It worked. It was a great kind of interplay. It was a great kind of focused character grouping. So trying to bring in this angle kind of lessens that in a way that doesn't add anything. It just makes it a lot more kind of creepy. That's not the least of it though, because you also have Dick palling around with Donna Troy, who doesn't do that much interesting stuff in the episode. The role they give her is along the lines of a reverse Peter Parker, where she's an investigative photojournalist, and she uses that as a cover to do sort of vigilante takedowns, which is interesting, but it just feels like a very one-note type of thing, and they only use it to contrast Robin instead of making it like her own, so she feels like an afterthought. And Robin, for his own part, doesn't really have much agency in that too. they add in more characteristics that we didn't really get a sense of him having a problem with at all. Like when he is suddenly a fish out of water, sheltered, homeschooled kind of kid at a social event, it's played for laughs, but like Dick didn't seem to have that much of a problem or an issue at all before. Plus, this episode just ends on a very predictable cliffhanger that anyone could see coming a mile away, and so just the entire episode feels cheap. It feels like they went for the least demanding route for all of these things, and that just makes me really worried because that means the show is on a decline now, and I don't want it to be. I think that it started out really great, and it started out really fun, and it started out with a clear and steadied hand and head, which made all the difference. And now if it's just going to be doing all this kind of crap, then yeah, that's just sort of flushing down all the goodwill that it is actually building up. So I really hope the next episode and the next couple episodes really do a good job picking up the pace again and actually demanding more of the characters and the direction and just the events that occur of the plot, because, well, you need to have that, or else what are you even being invested in? So yeah, one thumb down, one thumb up. Anyway, I guess that leads us straight on into listener questions. We have one from the ever amazing Illuminated, who, like I've said, has started their own digital anthology, plus is on the verge of starting the 3rd chapter / story arc of Mad Magic. So yeah, check all those down below. I'll be posting the links. And their question is, how big am I on the Legion of Superheroes, and what is my favorite run and character? And well, that's kind of a two-pronged question. I mentioned this on my Twitter before, but on Ko, I frequent and read through JSA Storytime threads. And we started out, or at least we did really early on, a full-time reread of pretty much every single Legion of Superheroes run and sort of creative takeover that existed. So probably 80% of that is still like infringed my mind and still very memorable, and I think maybe like they rank number 3 or 4 of like my all-time favorite teams. But what is my favorite run? And I'm gonna have to say the original Silver Age stuff, because there's just so much like weird kookiness going on there that it makes it charming in ways that sometimes later, more modernly written arcs and runs just can't recapture. I still remember that issue of Adventure Comics where the Moby Dick of space, which is what he's literally described at, and it's fantastic and it's brilliant, just takes Lightning Boy's arm, and there's a character named Jonah, and it's a perfect storm of everything I love about how far Silver Age writers would just be recycling and taking influence from literature and all these other classic tales and mythologies and trying to filter them through to comics. You see that so much with early comics because that's their reference pools. Right now we see comics that take influence from like TV shows and pulp and movies and all these other things. So yeah, of course that was then, and whenever the Legion of Superheroes in the original Silver Age stuff crosses over with that, it's magic. It really is. Oh, Pharaoh lad, I miss you so much. Anyway, yeah, so while there are other runs that I think did so much amazing things that probably were overall more consistent, more well-rounded, like 5 years later, the first time of that, I know it's a bit cliche to talk about it, but so much of catching all these characters and just a lot of the background and reintroductions I thought were played to perfection, and I fell in love with that like almost immediately. That was probably a very instrumental key part in why I am so sort of enamored with Keith Gibbons' work today, because of the stuff that I encountered with him. So probably original stuff 5 years later, and then a kind of a hodgepodge of ideas that never really took off with me. Like, I know people make fun of Mark Waid's run because of how youth to power it is, rightfully so, but I think that could have worked. I think that DNA's run is entertaining enough. I never really got into it. Then you have, of course, all these other boots and reboots and reverse boots. So, you know, that's how it goes. But yeah, I guess my favorite runs would be the original stuff, like up until that point where it makes that transition into early Bronze Age 5 years later, and then a smorgasbord of different things that I would have to list out from other runs. My favorite character, though, would have to be Brainy. I think that he definitely does benefit from a larger kind of expanse of what writers come in and just sort of the development of writing content and consistency and where stories are allowed to develop and go. He's becoming really interesting. I think that leaps and bounds he takes and gains from just being there from the start and, you know, moving on forward. The character really does evolve, really does develop where the character can go and the directions that the character can really sort of spread itself over without feeling forced, I think is a real huge testament. Of course, that's not to denigrate any of the other characters that really do form the glue of the Legion. I just think that there's been so many moments that just sort of made me really hysterical or just really reflective over how far this character on such a long scale view. So yeah, Brainy would be my favorite character. And of course, runners up would probably be the Substitute Legion as a whole, Matter Eater Lad, or Bouncing Boy. Just a lot. There's a lot of really memorable and entertaining characters. So yeah, it can be a shame when they don't get used or handled in just the right way to actually make them pop. The Legion could be so much bigger than it is right now. And maybe, hopefully someday soon, they'll get the right amount of care that'll make them shoot up back to the top again, because they deserve it. Anyway, thank you for that question, Illuminated. I really enjoyed it. So great going back over past memories. It really was. Anyway, that's it for listener questions. As always, I want to say that if you have your own questions, comments, or thoughts you would like to hear discussed on the show, then please, you can find me on Twitter at THE_SNICKMAN, and you can send them right over, and yeah, they'll appear on here, and I always enjoy it. And I want to say thank you to all people who have done that, who've sent comments, feedback, questions. It always makes me so happy, and I'm so grateful and humbled by it. It's amazing, and thank you for those who have followed me all the way to season 3 of this thing. I never thought we'd get to a season 3, but it's a pretty amazing feeling. Also, I would like to give a special thanks to the cover artist at DOTEMCEE. Their work is fantastic, and I always recommend it. Alright, so it's going to be December 1st when this gets uploaded. I want to wish you all a happy December, and I'll hopefully be able to put together some special December ideas and tricks and gimmicks for this show. And well, if that does happen, I hope you all enjoy it. But I really do hope you have a happy holidays and that this month is the start of that. So see you all next week. Have a good one.